Welcome to your TV library. In this episode, we'll be learning about James Prescott Joule and his studies about the nature of heat and of his studies of the mechanical work which then led to the theory of conservation. James Prescott Joule was born in Manchester, England in 1818. At that time, Manchester was a busy industrial town. Actually, it could be named as the industrial centre of England, which back then was like the industrial centre of the world. As a child, young James had a delicate constitution and was not sent to school. At 15, he began working in the brewery, and by the age of 16, Joule was sent to Manchester Literacy and Philosophical Society to be taught chemistry, physics and mathematics. His father hired the eminent Manchester scientist John Dalton, the developer of the atomic theory of matter, as a private tutor for his two sons. Joule, although never appointed as an academic, was made a Fellow of the Royal Society in 1850 and was awarded the prestigious Royal and Copley medals in recognition of his achievements. That was in 1872. He received honorary doctorates from Dublin, Oxford and Edinburgh University. Joule began his research by analysing electrical motors. This was directly related to his work in his father's brewery. The reason being that in the brewery, steam engines were used. And after the development of the electrical motor, the potential of this new device seemed to be superior to that of the steam engine. Consequently, Joule's aim seemed to have been the construction of an economical electromagnetic engine. During the following years, the subject of Joule's research was the production of heat. In the experiments made between 1843 and 1845, he demonstrated the mechanical equivalent of heat. He had designed a machine that could transform mechanical force into heat. This does not sound so complex, but he created a machine that was really efficient in transforming mechanical work into heat. A local instrument maker had built a device that basically looked like a toy-sized version of a brewer's vessel. It consists of a copper vessel that was filled with 6 litres of water. The copper vessel is a device commonly used in beer brewing, and Joule was very experienced in controlling the thermal condition in such a vessel. Inside the vessel there was an axis with brass paddles to mix the water. Additionally, there was also fixed paddles that helped to produce a larger friction in the water. Meanwhile, he could use weights weighing almost 25 kilograms to move the mechanism. As the friction was so large, the weights went down slowly. Winding them up again was hard. This work was too tough for James, who was not capable of physical work whatsoever, but one of the workmen from his factory was extremely competent in winding up the weights without wasting too much time and without putting too much stress on the cord that connected the weights with the axis. During Joule's workday, he went into the cellar of his brewery where his workmen would wind up the weights and would let them go down again. After 20 times, he measured the temperature of the water. In the end, according to Joule's data, an increase of the water temperature of approximately 0.5 centigrade could be measured. The Manchester brewery enabled Joule to carry out his experiment successfully, as he needed a room with a huge capacity, the reason being that the heat produced by the human body in winding up the weights affect the room temperature and therefore affect the results of the experiment significantly. A room like the one mentioned exists in a brewery, that room being the cellar in which beer is stored. It has a huge heat capacity and thus has an almost uniform temperature. Its physical properties made it ideal for the production of reliable data. Joule was diligent in his explorations. He felt that he was going to make a major discovery and that this would be an important contribution to the sciences. He had already presented preliminary results of his experiments to the Manchester Literacy and Philosophical Society. He had even attended a meeting at the British Association for the Advancement of the Sciences where he presented his results. Yet the scientists at these meetings were not really interested in his findings, despite the fact that they were more than satisfactory. One of Joule's workers, John Benjamin Dancer, was an instrument maker, and he had a new instrument that he wanted to show him. They had markings for every tenth of a degree, and the distances between two markings were still easily visible. It had been noted that Dancer was extremely competent and was able to create particularly sensitive thermometers. The two thermometers he had acquired in 1844 were, he claimed, the first accurately calibrated thermometers in Britain, and he had bought him two new thermometers which were more sensitive than the previous ones. Joule was an expert at reading thermometers, as any person in the brewing business would be, and these instruments would enable him to reach a new precision, and that would be decisive in respect to his experiments. In one of his experiments, he inserted the thermometer into the water and waited to read the temperature. In a controlled room, some 30 minutes later, Joule reinserted the thermometer into the water and waited for the reading to stabilise. Joule read the instrument and noted the value, and then waited another 30 minutes to estimate the heat transfer between the vessel and the room. After that, there would be another time for another test. James Prescott Joule succeeded in determining experimentally the value of the mechanical equivalent of heat. It took almost 8 years from his first attempt to his publication in the prestigious Transactions of the Royal Society, London. His work on the mechanical equivalent to heat was crucial for the development of the concept of energy, which is what mechanical force was called then, and the principle of energy conservation. During his lifetime, Joule was honoured for his achievements by the unit of energy being given his name, thus becoming the only scientist honoured in such a manner. And that's all we have time for today, so I hope you enjoyed the